Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Objective brought to you by the Ayn Rand Center UK, where we apply the practical philosophy of objectivism to current events. Today, we're going to be talking about the main event of the world right now that has the entire world captivated, and that is the Hamas attack, a disgusting and despicable attack of Israel and Israel's response and the world response to the fighting that's going on over there. With me is Razi Ginsburg, a native of Israel, who knows quite a bit more about this topic than I, but we're going to be talking about it in a way that I don't necessarily think you'll be hearing in the popular news today. Razi, so tell us what's going on as we speak.
Yeah, so sorry about that. Just to update on what we're doing. So we're going to continue to cover this every day for the foreseeable future. We're going to give some updates on what's happening, just because I know following something like this from the news is often not an enjoyable experience, not just because of how bad the news is, but of how bad it's reported. But we are not a news channel, so keep that in mind. Yeah, the death toll has risen depending on different sources. It rises by the hundreds. They don't report on every single confirmed death. One source, at least I saw in Israel, a major news source, said that it's over 1,000. Others say that it's over 900. I assume they will all at some point get to over 1,000. There are still instances of terrorists in the south where have crossed the border, and there are firefights with them. They're still there. 3 Israeli soldiers died in fighting yesterday in the north of Israel with Hezbollah. So that second front has opened up. Not in the same way as the first one did, but it's getting there. So I think we mentioned that this is something that is likely to happen on Hezbollah's initiative, should happen on Israel's initiative. It's not going to happen on Israel's initiative because the initiative has already been taken. But yeah, so Israel is now fighting this war on 2 fronts. Politically, at least most of the major opposition parties look like they're going to join the coalition, and there's going to be a broad coalition for the duration of the war. Of course, right before that, Israel was in the greatest political turmoil in its history over the judicial reforms, and there were protests all the time, and so this is the situation as it is now there.
Lovely. And so far, the world seems to be outraged. European powers seem to be throwing their support behind Israel. Conservative news sources, at least, are really outraged, and they are definitely highlighting the atrocities of Hamas, and really trying to make this front page news. At least venues like the New York Post, justifiably showing how awful these human beings are. I shouldn't call them human beings, they're savages. But in the face of this, we have people in New York City protesting in the streets for Palestinians. And Jesse Waters sent somebody out to interview some of these folks. The things they had to say were absolutely horrific, and that they stand for Hamas in the face of this violence, and that the level of violence does not disturb them at all. In fact, one person outright said, the Israelis have it coming. So in the face of such self-evident savagery, there are still people out there that support these people. I mean, what do you think of this insanity? There's a lot of moral unclarity, even though people seem to be clear at the moment. Many people seem to be clear. I suspect that moral unclarity is going to start bubbling up pretty soon.
Oh, yeah. Regarding the protest, and I've said this on Twitter, people who follow me on Twitter, I'm usually not active. Nowadays I am, so this is also one of the times that I'm going to promote my own stuff outside ARCUK. Follow me on Twitter or X at Razi Ginsburg. I tweet a lot, and around this issue, and I think it's good. It's good stuff. But one of the things I mentioned is that these are not protests; they're celebrations. What are they protesting right now? They're out on the streets celebrating, and they're celebrating the murder of Jews. They're celebrating the barbarism in which this is taking place. The specific acts, and something else we talked about yesterday. We're not going to show any of the videos. I don't share them on my Twitter, but I do encourage people to see them. We are going to describe them, which I know is going to be difficult for people, but I think we need to be specific with this, and realize exactly this is not this is not just killing in war, which again, considering their cause, is still terrorism, and horrific in its own right. This is just barbaric acts that again are reminiscent of the Holocaust, and so some of them include some of the stuff includes taking over people's homes. Going on Facebook Live and streaming, the torture of the families, the murder of people. We saw the scenes of hostages being taken into the Gaza Strip, and the mob, the masses are out there celebrating. And this is another point that's important to consider when we're talking about innocent Palestinians. That is an idea that I have a problem with, unless you're talking about children, because those masses might not be as actively involved in every act, but they are.
No, they are. They are. Just drive an Israeli soldier through these masses, just drive an Israeli citizen through these masses and watch them attack them and tear them apart, beat them with clubs, and mutilate the bodies, and use and just statistically that the high percentage of the people in Palestine, they've been indoctrinated by Hamas from the time they're children, for sure, but they support the cause, so they are part of the cause. There is no distinction in the sense between civilian and fighter, and I think objectivists are unique in our outlook with respect to legitimate self-defense and warfare anyway. And we don't talk about the collateral damage in the same way that other people do. We talk about simply the right of self-defense by any means necessary to stop the aggression, to permanently end it, and that the casualties for that self-defense are the moral responsibility of the aggressor. Now, to me, that seems like common sense, but people just don't seem to understand it. I have a question for you, Razi. This is the first time that I've heard people talking about, in the political realm and in the pundit realm, that Hamas has to end. Like, I'm hearing political pundits now saying, end Hamas, end it, not just as a political entity, but kill them, destroy them. Now, have you heard this in the past? This is something I'm not familiar with in the past. It always seems like they've tried to contain violence.
I have actually heard it in the past in Israeli politics, but this was in the 90s, maybe up to the late 90s, early 2000s. At some point, Hamas, as it grew, it became less of a possibility, or politically justifiable option. Even though as they grew, they committed more atrocities, but they became more politically acceptable. Certainly, they're politically acceptable to some on the West. And what is disturbing to me in Israel's rhetoric is that, at least at the highest levels, that is not being discussed. What's being discussed is destroying their military capabilities, and dealing a blow that will harm them for many years to come. That's not sufficient, but that's actually, since we're talking about how Israel can win, and yesterday the title was why Israel can't win, and the reason is, of course, the politics and the ethics that underlie those politics. But the way Israel could and should win is, again, of course, a complete destruction of Hamas in Gaza, and eventually the complete reoccupation of Gaza permanently, not as a temporary military solution, and an attack on South Lebanon that ends the existence of Hezbollah. Because you can't say, okay, we're gonna just destroy the terrorists that did something right now, but not all of those who say that their only reason for existing is to end the state of Israel. So I think that needs to be the second front. And I think, and I said this yesterday, if Biden backs up the rhetoric, I'm happy with the way he's dealing with this. I mean, I think the rhetoric so far is good. The moving an aircraft carrier is good. And if Biden wants to really back up the rhetoric, then he will help Israel militarily on the one front that I think they will need help, which is to end the regime in Iran. The Iranian regime cannot survive this if Israel wants to survive long term.
Why is it so difficult for people to understand this? Why is it so difficult for they understand in maybe an intellectual way that this is a fight to the death, but it seems it seems like they don't take the threat as seriously as they should. And when objectivists talk about the way this war should be fought, people on the left and right look at us like we're the crazy ones. What's behind that?
Broadly, what's behind that is altruism. What is behind that in the way altruism is applied there? That's a question for the philosophers. I look at it and knowing that's what I should expect, I'm still baffled by it. And another thing is now that there's this a little bit of undoubtedly temporary support for Israel in the West, we still see those scenes that you mentioned of people celebrating in the streets. And it's not a small group of people. There are many of them in many major cities. There are many such people in London.
And college campuses and across social media. The pro-terrorist activists are out in force as we speak. And if you throw yourself into the debate, they're going to pile on to you.
Yeah. And it's a combination of, Muslims in the West who, many of whom, I don't know the statistics, but certainly many, those in the streets are potentially also sleeper cells who will be activated when called upon, and just the useful idiots on college campuses. It's probably mostly leftists who I doubt will actually join the next Hamas operation, even if they're called to do so. I think I mentioned this on shows in the past, but I'll mention it again. I once saw the first few minutes of a documentary about the revolution in Iran. I stopped watching after a few minutes, but they were interviewing a communist who from Iran who is no longer living there, but she was saying, we at the beginning, we wanted to remove the Shah, so we fought alongside the Islamists, and we couldn't believe that it was actually worse than they were worse than the Shah. So yeah, I think if those students protesting get what eventually achieve the results that those protests would achieve, then they will probably not be happy with him either.
Well, in a just world, they would feel responsible and guilty, and perhaps do something terrible to themselves for advocating this kind of savagery. Well, I don't want to step on the next show, because the next show is going to be talking about some of these issues, but I do want to get some projections from you with respect to what do you think that world is going to look like in the next 6 months? Will Hamas be gone?
No, and I'll say what I said yesterday, which is I very much hope that I'm wrong about all of this. The rhetoric from Israel is much stronger than in the past, and I assume the military operation will be much stronger. I don't know if horrible as this sounds, if we should hope for Hezbollah to open another front in the north full on, because then Israel will have less of the option of what it wants to do, which is a massive ground operation in Gaza, and that ground operation will result in so many Israeli deaths. Historically, they always do result in deaths, but this time Hamas was prepared for what they did on Saturday, and they knew that doing what they were doing on Saturday would result in a ground operation. So they're prepared for that ground operation. So you will have, soldiers just blowing up along the streets when entering buildings. I don't want to imagine
why put themselves in this kind of jeopardy again. This is such a twisted morality. I hate, and I even, I must be somewhat infected by popular values, which I think are so bass-ackwards, because I feel a little guilty in a sense saying you should just raise it, bomb them into oblivion so there's nothing but rubble left. Sorry. And if the troops can go in there and clean up afterwards, they shouldn't be going house to house in the most densely populated area in the world where they will definitely receive casualties. They have to reduce that possibility by raising Gaza. Do you agree or disagree?
I do agree. Why aren't they doing it? Well, historically, the reason they don't do it is because they don't want to hurt civilians on the other side, and they want to keep using that slogan, which nobody is buying anyway, of "we are the most moral army in the world." And of course, that they are, according to altruism, they are. But the altruists of the world are, united in.
Can we just define that? You're right. They're defining their morality, their moral stature, by the fact that they sacrifice their own people to protect the enemy, or those who may be near the enemy who are not necessarily involved with the enemy. Let's forget that the majority of the Palestinian population is the enemy. Let's forget that for just a second. And say that a moral army is one that defends the innocents of its own side. It defends those who have been attacked, and it defends them with the type of aggression that stops the initiator of force in its tracks and permanently. That is a moral army. A moral army is not one that starts fights. It's not one that fights for imperialism or tries to colonize or destroy a civilization for its gain. It's one that defends itself wholeheartedly so that the enemy understands that any further attacks will be futile and end in death. That is a moral army.
Yeah, that is a moral army. And as Ayn Rand said, the moral is the practical. And, when you do this, the enemy, the civilians on the enemy's side see this, and then they're right at the moment to be terrified of Hamas and not really afraid of Israel. So they're not going to stand up to Hamas. Why would they? Hamas will kill them in the most brutal way they do to Palestinians who are suspected of collaborating with Israel, what they do to Israeli civilians. So now
libertarians are going to call us warmongers because we believe that if you have been pushed into war, you should fight it deliberately and to end it, with the ideal of ending it as quickly and decisively as possible. Why do they consider that warmongering? We're not asking for a fight.
if libertarians express agreement with me on foreign policy, I rethink my views on it. So,
By the way, I'm trying to get Dave Smith to debate me on Israel and trying to get him to debate me on war. Apparently, he's been having some run-ins with Iran. I was trying to start a fight between the two of them so I could referee, but this is a guy who said he wanted me on his podcast 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Now he won't respond to anything that I say. I wonder why.
I don't know who that is, but I will watch that debate.
He's big in the libertarian world, and he's a comedian who's very big in the libertarian world. Anyway, but I think we need to resolve this. I think people in the freedom movement, and I have to consider the libertarians and the anarchists part of the freedom movement. They're part of what's dragging it down and making it complex. But we have to have this out with people like that to get clearer on the moral situation, don't you think?
I mean, I think we, as Ayn Rand Center UK and other objectivist individuals and organizations, need to provide the clarity on this, and that's why we're doing this every day. That's why I, as always, but even more than always, encourage people who think this content is of value to share it with anyone you know, who certainly anyone you know who is confused about this issue, and of course, like and subscribe and all that helps with the algorithm, because yeah, this is we're going to do what we can do, which is not much. I'm not going volunteering to join the IDF unless they need somebody to press a button, and then I can do that. But otherwise, this is what we're going to do. We're also looking into ways. I was hoping we would have something already, but we're looking into ways that we can support different initiatives in Israel. There is actually one thing that we are going to announce, maybe even on the reality show, but if not, then tomorrow, an initiative by Ayn Rand Center Israel to have a retreat for some kids who are in the, not kids, they're teenagers, I think, but in the area where rockets are falling on a not daily basis, hundreds of rockets in the last few days. So yeah, we will keep doing that. We'll keep doing whatever we can. We'll keep doing shows. We also the Briefly Objective, our channel of short videos, which was recently relaunched. Yesterday we posted a video on this topic there. Daniel will put it in the live chat, but we're also going to attempt to do that every day, or at least close to every day for the foreseeable future. So please subscribe to that channel and share those videos. People are often more likely to watch something that's 3 or 5 minutes long, and they can then find the link if they want the longer form content and find it here. So we have some super chats. Mark, do you see them? Do you want to read them, or do you want me to read them?
I don't see them. We
have a super chat from John Was, thank you, and another one from Henrik Teller, asking, how can the morality be won? In part with everything I just said, and support like you gave with this super chat. I think supporting us, supporting and sharing our content, supporting other objectivists. Yaron is the best commentator I know about the Middle East in the world. I, just because of how things are in the last few days, haven't seen any of his shows on this, but I know he's
they're very good. I've been posting them on Twitter as much as possible.
So yeah, watch those, share those, watch those, and watch.
Also Ilan Journo in The New Ideal has some very good things to say. If you want clarity on this issue, guys, you're going to have to go to the objectivist historians and experts in this region, because they're the only people out there, I think, offering a really coherent moral perspective of what's going on. Did you have another super chat, Razi? Did I cut you off?
Yeah, we had a super chat from Bonnie as well, and a super chat from James Valiant saying decapitated corpses of infants are the direct fruit of our appeasement of Iran and Hamas.
Amen.
And we have super chats from Apollo Zeus and from Wes Stewart. Thank you everybody for your super chats. And thanks for watching. We are Mark, I believe are you on the reality show?
Yes, at 6 p.m. UK time, the reality show is coming up, folks. We're going to continue this conversation in a little bit more depth. Please join us. We need moral clarity on this. The objectivists online are gonna have some moral clarity about it, but you people who are new to this philosophy, listen to what we have to say and test it for yourself. Does it make sense? I think it does. At 7 p.m. UK time, the Fountainhead Book Club for ARC UK members. The session will be also live streamed to YouTube members. All right, folks. So look,
and we do have somebody from Israel on the reality show today. It's his first time on the channel. Gilad. I think some of our objectivist audience might know who he is, and he is there. So what I'm saying when I'm updating is just because I'm spending all my time watching the news from Israeli channels. He's actually there, so perhaps he knows more, and yeah, you should definitely watch it. So.
Okay, hopefully he will give us some insights. And folks, and particularly in cases like this, always remember to check your premises. We'll see you in a few minutes. Peace.